Hey, just to let you know, before the video begins, this is part 2 of a giant Silksong review I'm doing. So in case you haven't seen the first part, go watch it. I spent a lot of time on part 1, and it would mean the world to me if you gave it a watch either before or after this video. Alright, that's it. Thanks for hearing me out. Bye bye! Welcome to the Citadel, our final destination on our very long journey. The Citadel is split in different areas, and our main goal here is to find 3 melodies. One residing in Clockwork Court, another in High Halls, and the final one in Whispering Vaults. And I love this Citadel. It feels like a test of everything you've learned up until this point, and it's a very welcome challenge, with my favorite area being the Clockwork Court. The platforming was so much fun. And while we're on the subject, the areas are such a blast to go through. Actually, besides these 3 areas, especially Biowater, the world can feel so live and fun to explore, with every place feeling distinct with the art and level design. Every time I thought I explored everything the game had to offer, it would slap me over the head with a new one constantly. I felt like a little kid that thought the game would go on forever, like I was gonna miss another major area just behind a breakable wall. And I couldn't talk about the areas without talking about a platforming fan's dream being Mount Faye. Something I haven't talked about is my giant love of platformers, specifically ones that aren't afraid to give some punches. Super Meat Boy, Celeste, Donkey Kong, Freedom Planet, hell, even Mr. Spaghetti and Meatballs here has his moments. There's a couple of reasons I love this area so much. One is the freezing mechanic. In the area, you'll notice your health drops fast when not in these areas of light, and falling on the cold water, you might as well start writing your will right then and there. It forces you to adapt to the timer and learn the area with the constant risk of death in such a fun way. Second, your reward is something to make the platforming easier, being the double jump. Despite that, however, the double jump only allows for shortcuts but never takes away from the challenge. Now, like I mentioned earlier, not all areas are winners, but something that is consistent in almost all the areas is the amount of times the game would stop you just to fight X amount of enemies. I understand if it was every now and then, but it felt so often that it became more of a slog, especially in early game. The feeling of, oh shit, it's time to beat some baddies, turned into, oh my god, here we go again, which is something you never want in a game. To be clear, they're fun to fight, they feel varied, and despite me just saying there's too many enemy rushes, I still enjoy them. They feel like a juggling act, and as you progress, they throw more balls in the air, making sure you can manage what's in front and ahead of you. But, like I mentioned earlier, they can feel like a drag after doing them so many times. But you know what isn't a drag? The bosses. Bosses in Silksong have become some of my favorites of all time, with one of them being the first Sinner. This is a fast-paced fight with a weaver, which means she uses similar attacks as you. Some examples are the spears being flung in every which way, this claw attack that's very reminiscent of the Beast Crest, and the fact that she can heal. This fight will constantly throw shit at you and see if you can survive this dance, and it's fantastic. However, there's an elephant in the room I briefly mentioned in part 1 being double damage. Something I've heard a lot of people complain about is the double damage, and even after beating the game, I'm not 100% sure how to feel. Because there's a couple ways to tell if an enemy is going to do double damage, either them being bigger or a single attack amongst other attacks. But it happens in early game where you get 2 to 3 shot, which can make the beginning bosses feel frustrating. But you also heal 3 mass, so is it justified? Is it people having a skill issue, or is it a problem the game needs to address? And I see both sides, because on one hand, it makes the game still difficult for veterans of the original game. But on the other hand, like I mentioned earlier, it can make the game more frustrating because the game cuts your hits in half, and when learning the combat, it can make the player more skittish when the game wants you to play more aggressively. I don't know, it's such a weird approach to difficulty, and I can understand if it was later in the game, but they do this on the second boss, Bell Beast. This whole topic could be its own video, but a short answer is, I don't know. I don't know how to feel, and maybe this is something we can discuss in the comments. Once we get the 3 melodies, we finally see what's going on at the top of the citadel. We enter the elevator, and at our stop, we cross paths with a certain white-haired fencer from before. This fight is great. There's 3 phases, with the first one being largely the same as the first fight. The second phase, her lunge is upgraded with another smaller yet quicker lunge after her first, followed by this white circle that the wiki calls a balustra. Then the final phase is this attack of her swinging her lance in a circle called a monule, which is now done twice in a row. This fight keeps things familiar while still adding some extra spice. It's as the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Great fight to end Lace once and for all. Now with Lace finally down, we make our way to the final boss, being Grandmother Silk. We finally get to face the one that's been pulling the strings and cut ties once and for all. And this boss is the perfect conclusion to the game, having a wide range of attacks, each testing all your skills, and even one that will do 3 masks of damage if you aren't careful. And after a rigorous battle, we get our reward. Now, you might be thinking this is the part where I glaze the shit out of the game as if I haven't enough already. But there's one thing I left for the very end, being the side quests. I decided to talk about this stuff at the end because they're optional. You find these billboards in 3 areas of the game, and there are the usual things you expect, like kill X amount of enemies or pay a fee, but there's actually a lot here the deeper you go, like extra bosses. But overall, I'd say the side quests are fun, especially one when talking to the caretaker. He'll explain that there's a trap for the Grandmother Silk that he can set up, but he'll need his family's help, so he tasks you with gathering the others' powers to set up the trap. Once you do that, he sets up the trap in the cradle, and all that's left is to run back up and fight her again, but this time use your needle-in when you have her stabbed in the head. And once we do, we see our reward for helping this little guy out. And that's part 2 in the books. I know some of you might be wondering how long this review will take me, and I pinky promise the next video is the final part. This is the longest a review has taken me, rounding to almost a year in production, which is kind of insane. Going into this review, I knew it was going to be a long one, but not this long, Jesus. I hope it shows that I pour everything into these videos and want to make something special for my favorite video game. I also want to thank everyone for helping me reach 500 subscribers. One short I made blew up because I got some information wrong in the first part, and once I combine all these into one video, I want to make it right to you all by fixing some of the mistakes I made within the first and potentially this part as well. Once again, thank you all so very much for helping me reach this milestone, and the video I promise will be after this review. Y'all are awesome and it should be celebrated. Once this video comes out, I'll have a post on my community tab and Instagram at JiggyStar2006 because I have a couple ideas of what to make for this occasion and I want to see which one y'all would prefer. Alright, I'm gonna go back to my cave for another 3 months. Thanks for watching and have a good day.